Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. The baby boomers have made their mark on every aspect of American life, so it isn't surprising to find that there is no exception when it comes to death. The boomer generation has always been one to buck tradition and look for alternatives, and the last act of their lives is turning out to be no different. Boomers are choosing to leave this world by employing creative alternatives to their funerals, webcasting the services, customizing the caskets, choosing cremation, and exploring other options such as green burial. It's a generation that is definitely thinking outside the box. When I say the word funeral, this is probably one of the images that pops into your head. A flower-draped metal casket, awaiting mourners, and internment in the grave. But increasingly, this image of the traditional funeral is being replaced, as boomers begin to demand an array of options from the funeral industry.
The boomer generation is not as traditional as the generation before. The generation before was pretty solid with casket, vault, embalming, visitation, you know, the whole 9 yards. And the boomer generation is definitely open to with cremation, with whole body donation.
They're wanting options, and they're not settling for just the Amazing Grace old rugged cross in the garden.
The first area where boomers are impacting the funeral industry is cost. The National Funeral Directors Association reports the average cost of a funeral with a casket and vault, but not including cemetery plot and monument, is nearly $8,000. Boomers are consumers, and they're ready to comparison shop before buying.
I think for a period of time, people thought that all funeral directors were the same, all costs were the same, so it didn't matter who you chose, but it does, and there is a wide variance in cost.
You can buy everything online these days. Why not a funeral?
With the internet, we're seeing more where you can compare different funeral homes, compare prices.
Technology is changing the industry in other ways. Memorial Park is installing cameras in their chapels to enable webcasting of funeral services so that family and friends who can't be present can still attend online.
We are seeing where families will FaceTime or they will also Skype the funeral service.
And the funeral services themselves are changing.
The phrase traditional funeral nowadays, it's almost unheard of nowadays.
Everybody wants something unique now, and I think that is really being brought on by the baby boomer generation, and that, as we all know, that generation has worked to break the mold in almost every regard.
We see people especially bringing in memorabilia to services to personalize what their loved one was about in life, what they cherished, what they valued. We'll have like music for the visitation, or different ways to personalize it, for like balloon releases or dove releases. Different ways just to not have just the cut and dry traditional funeral, to make it more, oh, that's so mom, or that's so dad.
Personalization doesn't stop with music and memorabilia. If you're a sportsman or an outdoorsman, you can choose this hunter's casket with elk horn handles and a camouflage interior. And for the biker or motorhead, how about this diamond plate casket? You can even choose a Harley-Davidson hearse for the trip to the gravesite. Jason Dixon tells the story of a mother looking for an urn for her deceased son, who was a weightlifter.
I said, have you ever thought about getting a dumbbell? If I could find a dumbbell and I could put his ashes in a dumbbell. And she said, sure, let me look around the home, see if I have one of his. She couldn't find one. But I went to a couple of stores, took pictures and sent them to her. We ended up taking this dumbbell to a sheet metal place, and he hollowed the dumbbell out, and we placed his ashes inside the dumbbell and used that as his urn.
Boomers are driving other trends in the industry, none more so than cremation. Just over 20 years ago, the national cremation rate was less than 20%. Today, it has more than doubled.
And I think you'll see in Memphis somewhere around a 35%. Nationwide, we're setting apparently near 40 and well on our way to 60.
Cost is driving it. There's no question. You can't deny that. There are people out there that just simply can't afford a traditional funeral service.
Statistics from the Cremation Association of North America show that a direct cremation, which offers a basic urn and limited memorial services, averages $1,650. Adding a full memorial service, burial of the urn, marker, and so forth will increase the cost, but generally, cremation is the affordable option.
To some extent, cost is an issue, but I think a large extent that's just the preference that either their loved one or the immediate family members want to take care of the disposition of their loved one.
It is more accepted now among all walks and religions. The Catholic Church used to be against cremation, and now it's acceptable. Even some of the Catholic churches here in the city of Memphis are putting in columbariums.
This casket represents one of the newest trends in the funeral industry, green burial.
Green burials are burials that help to make a small impact on the surrounding habitat. They produce very little in the way of emissions, and they conserve natural resources in as much as possible.
The green burial casket is made of biodegradable and renewable material, but even a simple cardboard box can be used. Embalming, if requested, uses eco-friendly natural chemicals. A true green burial uses no vault. The body is allowed to decompose and return naturally to the earth. 2 cemeteries in Memphis allow green burials, but Elmwood is the only cemetery that doesn't require a vault. The funeral industry may call green burial a new trend, but it dates back to the earliest days of Elmwood's history.
Because green burials have been around for thousands of years. That's what most cultures have done up until the advent of refrigeration.
Environmental concerns are the main reasons families and individuals choose green burial. But what about cost? Green burials can be less expensive, but an elaborate green funeral can cost as much or more than a traditional service. The funeral homes and cemeteries we talked with have performed only a handful of green funerals, but they agree that it's a trend that's here to stay.
I think it will grow. I don't think it will ever dominate the funeral industry.
I think that it will take probably a quarter of the business in my estimation, whereas most of your business will end in cremation, but I think a good half of that eventually will still be a traditional funeral service before the cremation.
For boomers who are truly thinking outside the box, there is an alternative to metal caskets, green burials, and cremation: whole body donation. This is the Medical Education and Research Institute, or MERI, located in Midtown Memphis. Along with the Body Donor Program at UT Health Sciences Center, the Genesis program at MERI accepts whole body donations for use in training surgeons and developing new surgical instruments and techniques.
So when they come to our facility to get hands-on training, it's like they're in an operating room. The donors are not embalmed, so they get a realistic feel just like they were going to go in to do a procedure.
There's nothing that can replace actually physically performing something and doing something yourself. You can see it on a computer, you can read about it, but there's nothing like actually doing it. And I don't know about you, but as a patient, I would prefer that my healthcare provider has really performed a surgical technique or perfected their skills another way besides on me. And I think that's what we provide here. We provide that continuing education piece and the opportunity for that person to physically touch and do.
MERI will receive about 700 donors this year and provide training for over 13,000 surgeons. But advancing the science of medicine is just one reason for boomers to choose whole body donation.
Not only can they give back and feel like they're doing something for their fellow man, but it's also a way not to impose expenses upon your children and family that are unnecessary.
Mary covers all costs for body donors, including transportation and death certificates. When the donor's stay at Mary is complete, the body is cremated at no charge and either returned to the family or interred in a local mausoleum.
I had the opportunity to have my dad here as a donor in the past year, and just, and then my mother passed away as well in the last year, and she wanted the traditional burial. And I will tell you, it was much easier on the family to donate to Mary because they take such good care of you. And there's just so many details that you don't have to deal with. And honestly, I can feel good about my father being here, and I work here, and I know, the benefits of that, so I felt good about the things that he was able to do.
One of the last decisions any of us will make in this world is the disposition of our earthly remains. And some boomers may not be content with the earthly options. A company called Celestis specializes in memorial space flights, launching cremated remains into orbit. They anticipate launching their second memorial flight to the moon in 2015.